Warning disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. It contains emotional and mature themes meant for storytelling purposes only. The narrative is intended to entertain, provoke thought, and explore the complexity of human relationships. Reader discretion is advised. Emma Carter was like any other hardworking woman in her late 20s, juggling ambition and routine in the fast-paced world of corporate marketing. She had been working at Luminex Communications, one of the top advertising firms in Chicago, for almost 3 years. Known for her dedication, creativity, and quiet determination, Emma was respected by her peers, but she mostly kept to herself. She preferred the safety of routine over office gossip, late-night parties, or personal drama. Emma's days were filled with campaign deadlines, endless emails, and coffee-fueled meetings. But in the middle of it all stood someone who always disrupted her calm, a man who lived in her thoughts more than she liked to admit, Daniel Reed, her boss. Daniel was the company's youngest senior director. In his mid-30s, he was sharp, confident, and carried an aura of quiet authority. He wasn't just good at what he did, he inspired loyalty and admiration. To Emma, he was an enigma. Sometimes warm, sometimes distant. Professional, yet occasionally disarmingly personal. He would compliment her ideas in meetings with a soft smile that lingered longer than it should have. But the moment she thought there was something more, he would retreat into the role of the boss, again cool and unreadable. Despite the mixed signals, Emma had always kept a strict boundary. She wasn't the type to chase after fairy tales in office corridors. But deep down, she sometimes wondered, did he see her the way she secretly saw him? She had built a wall of professionalism around herself, and she wasn't ready to break it, not for anyone. That was until one evening, everything began to shift. It started off like any other Thursday. A normal staff meeting, a pile of reports, a headache creeping in. She was about to shut down her laptop for the night when an email notification popped up. It was from Daniel. The subject line was simple, "Dinner tonight?" Her heart skipped a beat. She opened it. The message read, "Company dinner at the Glass House at 8 p.m. You've been doing amazing work, and I'd like you to join. Casual, don't overthink it. No signature. No formal tone. Just, Daniel." Emma stared at the screen, unsure what to think. Was this just a professional dinner? Was she the only one invited? Why her? As her hands hovered over the keyboard, her mind swirled with emotions she had tried to suppress for so long. That night, she didn't know it yet, but her world was about to take an unforgettable turn. Emma stood in front of her closet, staring blankly at her clothes. She had read Daniel's message over and over again, trying to decipher what kind of company dinner this was. It wasn't an official email. No CCs, no RSVP link, and no mention of any other team members attending. Was it informal? Was she reading too much into it? After debating for half an hour, she settled on something neutral but elegant, a simple navy blue dress with a soft neckline and modest heels. Nothing too flashy. Professional, but still human. By the time she arrived at the Glass House, one of Chicago's sleek rooftop restaurants, the city was glowing under a velvet night sky. The place had glass walls, ambient jazz music, and waiters in crisp black suits. As she stepped out of the elevator, she scanned the crowd, and there he was. Daniel stood near a window, a glass of wine in his hand, looking out over the skyline. His dark gray blazer and relaxed posture made him seem less like a boss and more like someone out of a romantic film. For a moment, Emma hesitated. Then he turned, saw her, and smiled. "You came," he said, his voice unusually soft. "Well, you did say not to overthink it," she replied with a nervous laugh. He led her to a quiet table near the window. To her surprise, there was only one place setting besides his. No team. No other guests. Just the two of them. She raised an eyebrow. "So, this isn't a company dinner?" He gave a small chuckle. "Not exactly. I wanted a chance to talk to you. Just you." Outside the chaos of the office, Emma blinked. Her heart thudded. They ordered dinner, steak for him, salmon for her, and slowly, the conversation flowed. At first, it was casual. Favorite books, how long they'd been in the city, funny stories from old jobs. But as the evening wore on, the conversation deepened. Daniel spoke about his childhood, how he lost his father young, and how that pushed him into becoming independent at an early age. Emma listened quietly, moved by his vulnerability. She had never seen this side of him. The controlled, decisive man from the office seemed to melt into someone much more human, someone who had scars just like hers. "I've always admired your work ethic," Daniel said, swirling his wine. "But it's more than that. You carry yourself with a kind of strength, it's rare." Emma looked down, flustered. Compliments were not new to her, but this one felt different. It wasn't about her ideas or her reports. It was about her. She met his eyes. "You don't usually say things like that." "I don't usually get dinner with my employees either," he said, almost in a whisper. The words hung in the air. It wasn't just a dinner. And they both knew it. What began as an unexpected invitation had now become something else entirely, something personal, something risky, something real. As the night stretched on, neither of them knew just how deeply this one evening would change everything. The dinner was supposed to end after dessert. At least, that's what Emma had told herself. But the atmosphere had shifted. The usual workplace formalities had melted away under the warm lights, soft jazz, and emotional confessions. Emma felt like she was finally meeting Daniel, not the manager who commanded meetings, but the man behind the title. As they finished their meal, Daniel looked over his glass of wine. "Do you want to take a walk? It's a beautiful night." Emma hesitated for a moment. "Sure," she said, surprising even herself. They stepped outside, the cool air brushing past their faces. The restaurant was located near the lakefront, and a short path led them along the edge of the water. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, and the moon reflected gently on the surface of Lake Michigan. There was a silence between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with meaning. "You know," Daniel said as they strolled slowly, "when I first interviewed you, I knew you'd go far. But I never imagined I'd care so much." Emma turned to look at him, her heartbeat quickening. "Care?" He nodded. "At first it was just admiration, your dedication, your calm under pressure. But then, I started looking forward to seeing you every day, hearing your voice in meetings, getting your emails, even when they were just about deadlines." Emma stopped walking. "Daniel," she began, unsure of how to respond. "I know," he interrupted gently. "This isn't normal. I'm your boss. There are rules, boundaries. And I've tried so hard to keep them. But tonight, I couldn't pretend anymore." The air seemed to freeze between them. Emma felt torn. There had always been something there, unspoken, simmering. But hearing him say it out loud made it real. It made it dangerous. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "I just needed you to know. Whatever happens after this, at least I've told you the truth." They stood there, the lake behind them and the city in front, locked in a fragile moment suspended between confession and uncertainty. Emma felt 1,000 thoughts rush through her mind. This wasn't how office stories were supposed to go. She had always promised herself to keep her career separate from her heart. But then again, nothing about this night was normal. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was late. She pulled it from her purse and glanced at the screen. A number she didn't recognize. Daniel's phone began ringing too, at the exact same time. They exchanged a glance, their moment interrupted by something they didn't yet understand. He answered first. "Hello." His face went pale. "What? When?" Emma, concerned, stepped closer. "Is everything okay?" Daniel ended the call, visibly shaken. I have to go. There's been an emergency. My sister's been in an accident." Emma's heart dropped. The magical night had cracked in half in an instant. "Come with me," he asked softly, as if clinging to her calm. Without thinking, she nodded. What began as a dinner had become a confession. Now it was turning into something else entirely, a crisis neither of them saw coming. Daniel and Emma hurried down the dimly lit sidewalk toward the parking lot. The night, which had been wrapped in emotion and quiet vulnerability, now felt urgent and cold. Daniel's expression had changed, no longer calm and confident, but tense and full of fear. He opened the passenger door of his car for Emma. She hesitated only for a second before sliding in. They didn't speak as he drove, weaving through city streets toward the hospital. His grip on the steering wheel was tight. Emma could feel the weight pressing down on him. She wanted to say something comforting, but words felt inadequate. Finally, she whispered, "What happened?" She was driving back from a friend's place, Daniel said, eyes fixed on the road. A truck ran a red light. They said she's stable, but I need to see her. Emma nodded, her voice soft. Of course. The hospital wasn't far. As they pulled up, Daniel parked hastily and turned to Emma, his voice shaky. You don't have to come in. I understand if this is too much. I'll come, she said without hesitation. You shouldn't go through this alone. Inside the emergency wing, fluorescent lights cast a pale glow over the white-tiled floors. The receptionist directed them to the waiting room just outside the ICU. A few family members were already gathered there, some crying, some silent. Daniel approached a nurse who confirmed that his sister, Megan, was in surgery for internal bleeding, but was expected to recover. The words brought some relief, but not enough. He sank into a chair, hands over his face. Emma sat beside him, unsure what to do. So she did what came naturally, she placed her hand gently over his. He didn't move for a moment. Then slowly, he looked up at her. His eyes, usually unreadable at the office, were raw and full of emotion. You're really here, he whispered. She nodded. Of course. I don't know what I would have done if I got that call and had to face it alone. Emma squeezed his hand. You're not alone. It was a strange, sacred kind of moment. Two people, caught between a professional world they had carefully navigated for years, and a new space where walls were falling faster than either expected. Outside the ICU, in the quiet echo of machines and distant footsteps, Daniel spoke again. I've tried to keep this professional for so long, but tonight made me realize I don't want to pretend anymore. Emma's breath caught. You don't have to answer me now, he continued. Just, when this is all over, I want to talk. Really talk. She looked into his eyes, seeing the same man she had admired from afar, except now, he wasn't behind a desk or a title. He was vulnerable. Real. I think I want that too, she said softly. They sat in silence, side by side in the stillness of night, holding on to something fragile but honest. Hours passed slowly in the cold, sterile air of the hospital waiting room. Emma and Daniel sat side by side, their shoulders occasionally brushing, neither speaking much but both drawing comfort from each other's presence. The rhythm of their lives had changed in a heartbeat. What began as a casual dinner had spiraled into a night they would never forget. Just as the clock struck midnight, a doctor approached. She's out of surgery, he said. She's stable now. You can see her shortly, but only for a few minutes. Daniel exhaled, the tension in his body easing slightly. Thank you, he said, gripping the doctor's hand briefly. He turned to Emma. Would you come in with me? Emma hesitated. Are you sure? He gave a faint smile. I want you to meet her. She nodded, touched by the gesture. Moments later, they entered the ICU. Megan, his sister, lay in bed connected to machines, her face pale but peaceful. Daniel stepped forward, took her hand, and spoke softly. Hey, Meg. You gave us a scare. Her eyes fluttered open slightly. She managed a weak smile. You came. I always will, he said, voice thick with emotion. Megan's gaze moved to Emma. Who's that? She asked, barely audible. Daniel looked over at Emma and then back to his sister. Someone important. Emma felt her throat tighten. After a few minutes, they left the room so Megan could rest. Back in the corridor, the silence between them returned, only now it wasn't awkward. It was filled with unspoken meaning. They stepped outside for fresh air. The city had quieted down, but a strange kind of stillness hung in the night. Emma leaned against a pillar as Daniel stared out into the distance. You know, he said, life has a way of showing you what really matters in moments like this. Emma folded her arms. And what matters to you? He turned to her slowly. Tonight made me realize. I've been so afraid of crossing boundaries, of risking what I built. But what's the point of building something if you don't feel alive in it? Emma looked up at him. You mean us? He nodded. I think I've been falling for you quietly for months. I just didn't have the courage to admit it until tonight. Her chest rose and fell as she processed the words. The gravity of everything was finally catching up to her. And just as she opened her mouth to respond, her phone rang. It was a video call from her younger brother, Liam. She frowned. Sorry, I need to take this. She stepped away and answered. Liam's face was pale. Emma, it's Mom. She collapsed. They've taken her to St. Luke's. Her stomach dropped. What? When? Just now. I didn't know who else to call. Emma's entire world tilted. 2 emergencies. 2 families. 2 people who needed her. She turned toward Daniel, her eyes wide with panic. He immediately read the fear in her expression. What happened? It's my mother, she said, barely holding herself together. She's in the hospital. I have to go. Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm despite the storm. I'll drive you. In that moment, everything shattered again. 2 lives tangled by fate, 2 hearts carrying too much. The night wasn't over, and its unforgettable turn was far from finished. The drive to St. Luke's Medical Center felt endless. Emma sat silently, her hands clenched in her lap, eyes fixed on the passing city lights. Daniel reached over once to gently place his hand on hers. She didn't say a word, but she didn't pull away either. The comfort helped. When they arrived, Emma bolted out of the car and rushed through the emergency entrance. Daniel followed closely behind, keeping just enough distance to give her space, yet refusing to let her face this alone. Inside, Liam was pacing the corridor, his face pale with anxiety. When he saw her, relief washed over his features. She's in a room now, he said. They're still running tests. They think it was her heart. Emma's breath caught. Their mother had always been strong, tough, independent, the type of woman who never asked for help. Seeing her fragile like this shattered something inside. A nurse led them to her room. Through the glass panel, Emma could see her mother lying in bed, eyes closed, oxygen mask on, wires attached to her arms and chest. She's stable for now, the nurse said gently. But the next few hours are critical. Emma stepped inside quietly. She sat by the bedside, gently took her mother's hand, and tried not to cry. Behind her, Daniel lingered in the doorway, unsure if he should stay. Then something unexpected happened. Her mother stirred and opened her eyes slightly. Her gaze landed on Emma, then shifted to Daniel standing behind her. With weak breath, she whispered, "He looks just like his father." Emma blinked. "What?" Her mother smiled faintly. "Daniel Reed. You didn't tell me you'd finally met him." Emma's face went cold. "Wait, what do you mean?" Her mother coughed, struggling to speak. "I didn't want to say anything until the time was right. Your father, and Daniel's father, they were half-brothers." Emma froze. Her mind couldn't process the words. "What are you talking about?" Daniel stepped forward, confused. "Excuse me?" Her mother gave a small nod. "It was years ago. A mistake your father never wanted to talk about. But you two, are family in ways you don't even know." Silence filled the room like thunder. Daniel looked like someone had punched the air out of his lungs. Emma stood, eyes wide, voice shaking. "You're saying we're related?" Distantly, her mother said. "But it matters. And I should have told you sooner." Emma took a step back. The walls felt like they were closing in. Daniel turned, running his hands through his hair, stunned. "This can't be real." "I didn't know," her mother whispered. "Until recently. I was going to tell you someday." The air was too thick to breathe. Emma rushed out of the room, her mind spinning with disbelief, anger, confusion. Daniel followed her. "Emma, don't," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I don't even know what this is anymore." What started as one emotional night had become a labyrinth of family secrets, broken truths, and forbidden feelings. The very foundation of what had brought them closer was now shaking beneath their feet. And nothing would ever be the same again. The sun rose over Chicago, casting a cold gray light over the city's skyline. But for Emma, it brought no clarity, only exhaustion. She hadn't slept a single minute. She sat alone in the small hospital lounge just outside her mother's room, her legs curled up on the chair, a coffee gone cold in her hands. Everything about the previous night felt surreal. Her mother's health scare. The confession. The unbearable truth about Daniel. Half related. Family. A connection that should have never been ignored. The warmth she had felt with Daniel had collapsed into something colder, guilt, confusion, and a kind of heartbreak she didn't have a name for. Footsteps approached quietly. Daniel sat down on the bench across from her, looking just as wrecked. His dress shirt was wrinkled, hair unkempt, eyes red from lack of sleep or tears, maybe both. Neither of them spoke for a while. The silence was louder than words. Finally, Emma looked up. Her voice was rough. "Did you sleep?" He gave a faint shake of the head. "No, I couldn't." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I still don't know what to make of any of this." "I didn't know either," he said. "About our families. About my father. My mom kept a lot of things from me too." Emma looked at him, her expression torn. "So, what does that mean for us?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Technically, we're not siblings. It's more distant than that. But emotionally..." He paused. "It's complicated. I don't want to make excuses or try to justify anything. But what I felt last night, it was real." Emma looked down at her hands. "It was real for me too." Her voice cracked. She stood and paced a few steps, her emotions boiling just under the surface. "I spent so long building walls. Around myself. Around my heart. And the one night I let someone in, this happens." Daniel stood too. "I wish I could change how we found this out. But I don't regret what I said to you. Not for a second." Her eyes filled with tears again. "I don't regret it either. But it hurts. It hurts because we don't even know if we're allowed to feel what we feel." Daniel stepped closer, not touching her but letting his words bridge the space between them. "Maybe we don't need to figure everything out today. Maybe right now isn't about labels or timelines. Maybe it's just about facing the truth and giving ourselves space to breathe." Emma nodded slowly, brushing away a tear. "I need time," she said softly. "To understand this. To understand myself." "I'll wait," he replied without hesitation. "Whatever this turns out to be, I'm not walking away from it. Or from you." The sincerity in his voice broke something open in her again. No promises were made. No dramatic gestures. Just the quiet understanding of two people whose lives had changed in a single night and who were brave enough to feel everything that came with it. A week had passed since that unforgettable night. Emma stood by her apartment window, watching the morning rain tap gently against the glass. Life outside moved on, cars honked, people rushed by with umbrellas, the city breathed as if nothing had changed. But inside her, everything was different. Her mother had recovered well and was now home, resting. They had really talked for the first time in years. The truth about her father's past still lingered like an open wound, but in some strange way, it brought healing too. Things hidden for so long had finally seen the light. And Daniel? He hadn't pushed. He had given her space, just like he said he would. No texts. No calls. Just a quiet message 2 days earlier. "Whenever you're ready, I'm here." Emma read that message a dozen times. And each time, her heart ached, not from fear anymore, but from clarity. That night at the hospital had broken something open in her, a truth she had always resisted. She wasn't afraid of love. She was afraid of vulnerability. And now she knew it was worth the risk. She picked up her phone and typed a message, her fingers trembling slightly. "Can we talk? I'm ready." Seconds later, the reply came, "I'm outside." Her breath caught. She rushed to the door and opened it. Daniel stood in the hallway, holding a coffee in one hand and looking like he hadn't slept properly in a week, but his smile was warm, steady, real. Emma didn't say a word. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in a quiet embrace that said everything words couldn't. He pulled back slightly, searching her face. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," she whispered. "I don't care what our family histories say. I care about what we know. And I know that what happened between us wasn't wrong. It was honest. It was rare." Daniel exhaled, the tension in his body melting as he held her again. "So what now?" he asked. Emma smiled. Now, we figure it out. Together. And so they did. It wasn't easy. There were conversations to have, boundaries to set, questions to answer. But in a world full of what-ifs and rules and fear, they chose to walk through the storm, hand in hand. The night they thought would be just a dinner had turned into a confession. Then a crisis. Then a secret. And finally, a decision. A decision that didn't just change one evening, it changed everything. 47.